Right. Welcome back to the Clemson podcast. Auburn went from a Cadillac to an Escort. Dabo put diesel in the Ferrari. Clemson is 10-2, and life is not good at all. Welcome back, everyone, to the Clemson podcast. I'm your host, Nick, joined tonight by Ben and Jarrett. We are the Clemson podcast. We're here to recap the South Carolina game. Guys, what the fuck?
Great, thanks. Started off, I have to edit that out. Well, I mean, first, I'll start by saying that I, for one, refuse to watch this team again until Saturday. Yeah, listen, actually, life is good. You know what? Life's bigger than football. It sucks. I don't remember a loss. Still, like, fuming over a loss, 2-3 days after, without some sort of change in perspective, as I have coming off of this one. It was just a terrible loss all the way around. All the streaks that they broke, that knocked us out of the college football playoff. It was an ugly thing to see. I'd love to sit here and say and be the bigger man and say, that they were the better team. Now they did play better and they did deserve it, but were they the better team? I don't think they're the better team. I think it's something more fundamental on the Clemson side and the coaching. And then, the personnel obviously on the field. But overall, I think if you look at the talent on the roster and everything, there's no reason we should have lost that game. You look at the first half, 24-13, there's no reason we should have lost that game. The opportunities we had in the second half, no reason we should have lost that game. Even as bad as we played. So a lot of finger pointing going on. Obviously, you've got your message board warriors. They're going to be who they are. All the naysayers are going to come out the woodwork and stuff like this, and you have to filter through that stuff. Unfortunately, Dabo seems to be unable to do that, but I think we can, and just have a fresh perspective and take on this game and identify the things that have gone wrong, that are going wrong within this program, and still have some optimism for moving forward, because it's still a 10-2 team. At the risk of sounding like Dabo, we are going to an ACC Championship game as Tully pours a beer. But yeah, I think, there still is reason to believe in Dabo and this program for the future. I'm not ready to throw in the towel just yet. That's ridiculous.
I don't think I'm
No.
ready to throw in the towel, but I think I wouldn't complain if that towel was maybe like spun in a circle and whipped him in the eye once or twice.
Like Petey Pablo.
Yeah, exactly. Or worse. Where do you even begin? I mean, we started off with pick six. We started off, picking it off in the end zone. There were some weird calls that, probably could have gone their way, like the forward pass that wasn't, that didn't go for them. But it really just comes down to, I mean, 8 for 29 for 99 yards. If you are a Division I college quarterback and you go 8 for 29 for 99 yards, what other top 10 program is going to be like, that's our guy? Not even that you have to roast him or whatever, because obviously this is not just about, let's kick one single kid this whole show. But I mean, as a coaches, it's like you have to trust in someone else, whether it's your running backs, whether it's a wildcat formation, whether it's your backup quarterback that's 5-star, whether it's Hunter Johnson that's finally ready to take over our preseason Galaxy Brain prediction and take us to the college football playoffs. It's got to be something. You can't get away with being the head coach and just being like, well, that's our guy, we'll just keep throwing to him.
I mean, guys, like, this show is about why we lost and about why we really lost. And I think, yeah, we can go through 8 for 29. I mean, we can run the gamut. I don't know that people tuned in today to like get the analysis quarter by quarter, offense, defense, special teams, as we normally do. Let's touch on it. There's a lot of key moments that I think was worth examining, but I think a gut check and a sense check here on kind of the trajectory of the program right now. And usually we like to do forward looking, when we do that, and kind of talk about like, what's the reality, what do we have, what signs of optimism, or what's it looking like in recruiting? Like, what do we have to look forward to? I think we got to do a little bit of backward looking at this point. retrospective on why we got to the point where this is what this culminated in. And you had a wake up call earlier in the season with Notre Dame. Dabo talked a big game coming out of that game. It talked a lot about adjustments needing to be made. Didn't really see that down the stretch in this game too much. So I think we should also, I mean, we're recording this Monday evening on the West Coast here. Dabo had his radio show today. You got to be living under a rock if you're, following Clemson media right now to not kind of see what some of Dabo's comments were. I think we should touch on that. But let's continue the conversation about the South Carolina game here. I mean, you guys have brought it up. This was a back and forth game, and you kind of felt in the first quarter like Clemson had this in hand, quickly caught that lead back up. I mean, South Carolina gave Clemson put 9 points on the scoreboard for us. Our offense scored 21 points, in this game with a lot of opportunities that they gave us also. You mentioned DJ's stats, Jarrett. I mean, to move this in a specific direction, I've read a lot of stuff about Brandon Streeter and some of the post-game comments talking about this was not on DJ. We didn't lose that game because of DJ. That's a Dabo quote. There are all kinds of drops. I mean, you've got a lot of sober analysis coming out from a lot of different sources out there. Maybe not the most analytically focused accounts that are just stating literal facts. There were 3 wide receiver drops in this game. So 8 of 29, 3 drops, good amount of errant balls in this game. I mean, DJ got hurt though. Again, Jarrett, you brought up the point.
And that was the opportunity. That was
there were moments where you could acknowledge and figure out that he wasn't working and panning out in this game. And I want to ask you guys, not we don't need to belabor the point. We know DJ had a shitty game, but why do you think they stuck with him? And why didn't they go with Cade?
Who knows what's going on inside Dabo's head or Brandon Streeter's head or, whatever inside that locker room. I mean, is it really Dabo just playing favoritism? I find that kind of hard to believe. I don't think he's a smart guy. Is it because Cade just really what they see in practice? He is not developed to the point where they can trust him in the game. And then, then we're looking at player development, right? At the quarterback position, which we've, already seen one quarterback fail to develop significantly over his tenure. You could argue that Trevor Lawrence regressed somewhat over his, tenure as the Clemson quarterback. So is that the reason? I don't know. It's a good question. And the coaches aren't going to come out and tell us that. We're not going to get any straight answers. All we can do is speculate. But
we are on a podcast, Ben.
Yeah,
that's what we do.
Yeah, that's true. And it is fair to question why he didn't come out of the game, especially when you knew his head was out of it. And DJ is shown to be when things are going well, he can get on a roll and he can play a good football game. Now, most of the time that is not against a quality opponent. He's had great games this year, but when, shit hits the fan, he finds it really hard to bounce back. And that's where, he got taken out in the Syracuse game, and Cade didn't come in and really do all that much, but there was a different, there was a different urgency to the offense. There was more confidence in the offense at that point. The way he can use his legs and can scramble and the different things that he has to make a defense look out for that DJ doesn't have to. So I know that we threw him in the Notre Dame game and he had the pick 6 there. That was, maybe not a good spot to put him in that game. And I know it didn't work out, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't necessarily try that again, because it did work in the Syracuse game.
So that's the thing is Dabo will let DJ screw up and look like not good, and he'll just stick with him. But if they're saying, well, we put Cade in and he threw an interception on our 10-yard line or whatever first play, so we're going to be real cautious with them. That doesn't seem fair or consistent. And it's you hear so much this season about how oh man, everybody, we look great in practice, and then we don't know where that intensity is on game day and stuff. So it's if they are seeing in Cade that he's not ready in practice, and that already seems like a sugar-coated version of what we hear from them of what's going on in practice versus what we see, then that could be a horrible sign for how he's just not figuring it out, or he keeps throwing picks, or he keeps, the game's too fast for him. So,
okay, so maybe the consensus take here is Cade would have done worse than an 8 for 29 clip than DJ coming in. It's possible. He could have.
Maybe. I find that hard to believe, though.
Yeah.
I do
okay,
too. I do too.
Let's just assume that's right. Why didn't they hand the ball off more?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So another thing to point out here real quick about DJ's regression is earlier in the season, and he's exhibited this ability before, like he was placing balls like downfield or in the corner of the end zone right where they needed to be placed. And in this game, he was overshooting absolutely everybody. Like you could tell the confidence was gone and it wasn't there. And that's a regression that you've seen throughout the season. Last year, he actually there was progress that you saw in him. It was small, but at least there was incremental progress going on. And this year it's the opposite. So why you continue to do that? Why you continue to put him in bad situations? Like look at the Miami game, like the first 2 drives of the game. Like it was beautiful. Like we were getting quick passes across the middle to tight ends and to Antonio Williams and other receivers. And that was working. And we were moving quicker. And DJ's even mentioned himself, like, he doesn't have to think when we're going that fast, right? Like, why are you not calling the game like that, or at least trying? I mean, maybe they saw something on tape of South Carolina and didn't feel like they would be able to do that, but whatever else they were doing sure as hell wasn't working. And then the situations you put them in, like, why the hell we're throwing downfield to Davis Allen there in the 4th freaking quarter after we got lucky to get out of our own end zone with the face mask, then the pass interference call. Then on first down, you try to throw a bomb downfield. At that point, we don't need that. Just keep moving the ball down the field while the offense has momentum. Like, why are you thinking all of a sudden that's going to work? So there's a coaching issue.
And we needed a long drive then, Ben. Like our defense had been on the field a ton at that point. Like we needed to soak up clock. We had all the advantage, just need a field goal.
And what throws did you see from DJ in this game that made you think he would be able to make that one? Like, seriously. And, Will Shipley was running well at that point. And again, we can talk about DJ all we want. For me, the game turned and was lost, I think, due to coaching on the cute little trickeration play after the safety. Like, you get the ball there as the offense had already gone 2 drives in the first quarter to put up 14 points. You get that safety to go up 16-7. You get that ball back and go down and score, like different ball game. Could be game over at that point. And to get cute like that at that moment for no reason, like I know in hindsight, if it worked, we were like, oh yeah, that was great. But still like that.
Yeah. If we were down 16-7 and like, we're starting to see the game run away, then get cute, try to get some kind of spark. But like, you don't need to do anything other than just play to your strengths. And we like to say this is a recycled Chad Morris playbook, but you guys probably remember, if you really think about it, like there were plenty of times where like we would start to struggle with Taj, and instead of going back to the run game, we would just continually like press Taj to throw the ball, and like, end up getting ourselves in a lot of trouble. Or we would get cute and have Samuel Watkins throw a pick into the end zone in the 2013 Gamecock game, which I'll still never forgive him for that.
Did you call him Samuel Watkins?
Samuel Watkins. I drink more at home for the last month than I have in the last 6 months in SF. So my
Sammy should have called the playoff. He should have called an audible and just run it, taking the loss.
I mean, there's. Again, I mean, we're not here, and I always hesitate to do this. I'm not here to bash kids that are half my age. Like, and I think all Clemson fans, the ones specifically that are, being so harsh on players and calling them out and things like that, should really be ashamed of themselves because, what are you doing?
Who should also be ashamed of themselves, Ben? The proprietors of the Cotton Gin at 5 points, saying Antonio Williams, nice hands on their marquee.
Pretty lame.
That's rivalry football. That's not necessarily like attacking a kid's character or whatever. I think it's okay to criticize the play. I think it's okay for teams to have fun with that. I mean, listen, South Carolina deserved all the celebration and everything and all feeling high and mighty as they do after this game because they laid one on us and they ended a lot of streaks and they kept us out of the college football playoff. Like, they deserve this for a year and then they'll go back to being what they are. Most likely. But
absolutely.
Yeah, again, we can talk about the players all we want and everything, but it just goes back. It's been the coaching, and it's been the coaching over the last couple of years. And, we talk about the wide receivers. There's talented, at least on paper, wide receivers on this team, but we've seen no development out of any of them. Maybe Bo Collins, was the leading receiver in this game, 2 receptions for 65 yards. And I was really excited early on about how good he was looking. And then he went down with injury, and then nothing after that. We're just not seeing development, and it's overshadowing some development in other parts, of the offense with, the running backs have continued to progress. The offensive line has gotten better since last year, but
tight ends have gotten better when we use them right.
Yeah. Well, we can't, blame the O-line on DJ,
I mean, the first 3.5 quarters, we're calling for where are the tight ends? Then the one play you get Davis Allen involved.
Why
that? You don't need to. Yeah,
deep out route.
Deep ball him one-on-one on the corner, may not be the middle. Give him.
And Bo Collins was out. We need a boundary receiver, but it's not Davis Allen. I mean, I will say, we talked about the moment to insert Cade, and we don't need to belabor the point here, but we kept showing up with the ball inside our 10-yard line. The time to do it would have been when DJ got hurt, and the next time they scored and were kicking off to us, and we had decent field position. That's when you make that switch. But my God, in this game too, we were not sending any pressure against their punter. He's sitting back there, putting it on a pedestal and kicking it exactly where he wanted. We
were so scared of the trick play that we left the defense out on the field. We got completely outcoached in this game. And that's the 100%. Second time this year we've been outcoached.
You could argue more than that, Ben, to be honest. Wake Forest game. Anyway, a lot we could pile on here into this show. Ben, you started.
I do want to point out one thing because before we jump away from the offense, and this is just something I noticed when I crunched the numbers earlier. I looked at 10 years of our receiving numbers, and you can see within those 10 years, we average about 4,000 to 4,500 receiving yards per year most years. The last 2 years, we've been at 50% of the amount of receiving yards that we normally get. So, okay, last 2 years, what are some commonalities? And this isn't to say it has to be one or the other or whatever, but it just makes you think, right? It's last 2 years is DJ at quarterback. It's Streeter calling the plays. It's Grisham coaching the wide receivers. It's Dabo having probably more hands on with the offense because he's got younger coaches on the offensive side. So, I'm not a big correlation equals causation kind of guy, but something is there and it's not good. And it's just looked like crap for the last 2 years.
Well, and what Ben and we've talked about it on the show here a few times is, look, there are absolutely talented coaches on this offensive staff. Now, they're all green at the same time. I think it's just the combination, whatever it all is. DJ's a talented quarterback. These guys know football. Absolutely. They've been successful NFL players, for Christ's sake. But the problem is, the whole is not greater than the sum of its parts with this offense. And why is that? None of us amateurs can really pinpoint that. What we know though is something's off. And the question now moving forward, not for the next 2 games, because I think Dabo, whether it's coach speak or not coach speak, the next 2 games don't expect much to change. The question is moving forward for this program. And I want to get into a point of this show where I ask you guys, what is on Dabo's offseason to-do list if you were writing it and he could follow it in terms of, and I don't mean firing his sons, not his literal sons, but maybe, but also his other sons. Not just firing the staff, that's what everyone on TNet and Twitter and everything else is calling for. But what else in the Dabo leadership philosophy tree are you going to make an adjustment to? Because I think running it out for year number 3, as it's been, DJ could come back, Streeter could come, the entire staff, we could run it all back, bring everybody back. I don't think we're winning 10 games in the regular season next year if we do that.
This is where I give Dabo the benefit of the doubt that he actually will make a change. I think the Streeter experiment, and it's only been 1 year, but even if he's not the root cause, like that experiment has failed. And I think you need an overhaul of the coaching philosophy. You guys say that we recycled the Chad Morris playbook. Well, throw it in the damn compost. Like, get rid of it. Like, bring in somebody from the outside.
Ben, we're in California. People don't know what compost is.
Compost is
Trash.
where you throw your stuff that is biodegradable and that it rots into
What's that mean?
methane and it causes global warming. Um, do that with the Chad Morris playbook.
All right. It's already been in it as far as I'm concerned. But
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's that. And so I do think you have to stop. You need to start there and just have a refresh of the program. Bring in an outside mind who has experience in college football, who has shown the ability to innovate, very much like well, even with Chad Morris, like that was just an innovator and an up and comer and a guy that thought outside the box. He wasn't experienced, obviously, in college football, but it was something different. It wasn't from inside. So I think you have to start with the offensive coordinator and get Dabo's hands off of calling plays, which he definitely took more ownership over now that Tony Elliott's gone. And I think the position coach that we can obviously single out is Tyler Grisham, because we haven't seen development from the wide receivers. And you can say it's because DJ is not getting them the ball, but they've had like tons of drops over the past 2 years. The blocking technique is still absolutely garbage. And so those are developmental issues. Again, these guys are highly rated on paper, and I hesitate to call them all busts because I find that to be extremely unlikely. So I think it points to development. So I think you start with those two guys. Thomas Austin, by everything that we can see with the offensive line, there has been a progression this year. I'm not sure how much. I think this is not talked about how much Tate going down had an effect on this game. I thought McFadden let a couple guys get around, but overall, I thought Thomas Austin, at least under him, the offensive line this year has shown improvement.
First year O-line coach.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Granted,
And
he has been around. I mean, and I wanted to make this point, like, yes, it's Streeter's first year at the helm, but some of the benefit of the doubt and the leeway and leash you would give a coach, you kind of got to pull back for Streeter because he's been in the program so long. Like, he didn't have to establish a relationship with the key players and the key assistants that he has. We should use the same calculus and math and whatever you want to call it for Thomas Austin. But regardless, you're right, Ben. The offensive line group has taken a step forward this year, and talent's coming in too. Like, the recruiting trail, he's been really effective.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic there. The running back position, it's hard to give CJ Spiller too much credit at this point. We need to see how he does in recruiting. But those running backs are just, really great running backs. Now, Phil Maffa, here's another thing. When you keep running up the A gap, Phil Maffa is the only one that can move the pile up the A gap. Yeah, we're still like running Will Shipley right in there, and the yards that Shipley is gaining, you go away from those plays towards the end of the game.
Do you guys think Shipley struck me like, I think he's dealing with an injury or something? Like, he did not look 100% this game.
Well, he ran for 8.8 yards a carry, 132 yards. So
I mean, I didn't say he wasn't tough, but something doesn't seem right with Shipley, and I think it had, like, you're right, Ben, in terms of Maffa's ability to move the pile. I don't know. Yeah, thank God we got Maffa.
He could be injured. He could be a little injured, but it's what 12, 13 weeks into playing college football. But like,
he did have a hand issue or something a couple games ago.
It's pretty clear that he's like really displeased with the way that the offensive play calling is going, and I think I remember when he first came in as a freshman, they were like, this kid is trying to like lead us in the huddles and stuff like that, because he's like, if no one's gonna be a vocal leader after Trevor and Etienne leave, like, I'll be that guy. So like, he's always just been super intense and willing to step up. And I think, from a conversation that I had online with a former player, one of the things that he didn't like when he saw Streeter, who was on the other side of the ball that he played on, was that he said that he's a guy that kind of lives with no accountability. And maybe that's a little aggressive for us to say, because it's like through the grapevine. But when you hear the way that Shipley kind of ripped into the offensive play calling, it was basically kind of just saying that, like, hey, I'm coming over there and I'm telling them what I see. I'm saying this is open. We should do this, and then it's basically like, well, I'll just do my job because that's all that they want me to do.
In all these years under Dabo, I have never seen a player come out and say something like that, especially a player of such prominence. So that was really striking to me. And yeah, with Streeter too, and he will lead the chorus of, we didn't lose this game because of DJ. you're also not going to win the game because of DJ, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and he was kind of throwing the receivers under the bus. I mean, when I ask you guys, like with Shipley being so vocal, and I'm sure he feels like he's doing that out of like complete frustration, and there's no other what other
Mm-hmm.
outlet does he have if he's not being listened to? Maybe he'll go to the media. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at this point, it sure strikes me. I mean, if you're a receiver and you got your OC out there being like, it wasn't DJ's fault. People couldn't catch a pass thrown their way. They had 3
Mm-hmm.
drops on the day. Give it 4 or 5 drops. Like that. That's not the
Mm-hmm.
issue.
And
I
some
don't know.
horribly thrown balls.
Totally like whether it's DJ or whether it's not. Like I just don't know that you have the trust in your OC then. And if that's the case,
Mm-hmm.
what's going to give here? Are they going to cycle through the rest of their offensive talent, as sparse as that is, for next
Mm-hmm.
year through the transfer portal? Or are you going to make a change at OC? I think that's kind of like what's going to have to give here.
And I
One of the
think,
two.
again, I think Dabo has earned the benefit of the doubt. I think we all believe the Cage should be starting the ACC Championship game and the bowl game from here on out, and let's go ahead and move on and start the next era. Obviously, that's not going to happen starting with the ACC Championship game. But I still would like to give him the benefit of the doubt to see what happens this offseason, because again, we have seen him do this before. The Napier experiment did not work. Got rid of him, got rid of Kevin Steele, and then what he brought in was greater than that. He is
From the outside and let those guys
and
kind of influence the coaching picks after that, right?
It has started to seem to me like is once Dabo reached the top of the mountain, he has then tried to start doing with coaches what he tries to do with players, young men, high school guys, bring them into the program, develop them as young men and send them off into the world, as better people and set them up for success. Now it seems like he's trying to do that with coaching too, and bring these guys up through the rank. And well, Dabo's family tree looks like a Charlie Brown Christmas tree. His coaching tree does. Like it's just not very lush. Even Napier, if we're going to claim him down in Florida, is it's not going well for him so far. Jeff Scott has already been fired from USF. We'll see how Tony Elliott ends up doing at University of Virginia, but that has not proven to be his strong point, at least as far as developing the coaches. Now bringing in outside hires, that has worked well. And so I think that's like, it's going to be a tough decision for him to make. If you get rid of all the yelling at the fans and being mad at anybody questioning him, part of all his comments after this, you do see the part where he says, we know what I know what the issues are. I'm the head coach. I'm the person responsible for making the decisions, and I'm going to get it fixed. So he's brought us 2 national champions, taking us to 4, and we're not too far removed from that. Now, are we on a decline? Absolutely. But the South Carolina game was the thing, winning that game was the thing that got him the job. He knows the importance of that. And I think this South Carolina game, could very well be a very important loss for Clemson in changing the direction of this program or turning it back around moving forward.
Yeah, you just wonder if he's gotten too stubborn.
Go ahead, Jared.
I was going to say, you just wonder if he's gotten a little too stubborn. I mean, when they kind of brought it up to him today, about the passing game, and we haven't had a 100-yard receiver in 14 games, like going back into last season. So,
Jared, can you do the quote real quick, just for those people that haven't read or heard about it from the radio show? I mean, you can paraphrase, but it's like, Dabo, are you going to make staff changes based on not having a passing game for 2 years now, give or take?
Yeah. Yep. And he basically said that I'm pretty much always going to do what I feel is right. And what are we supposed to say to that? It's like, okay, so you're just never gonna like take a step back and reevaluate, or?
Well, he then turned it into, I'm gonna coach my way, and if you want to critique how I do my job, you guys can hire somebody else to do it. Like he went from, I think, like asking him to unpack how why we are where we are and what adjustments he's going to make specifically to the passing offense into like, we want your head on a spike, Dabo, which we do not.
Now, Dabo may not be a great loser. I mean, he obviously, honestly, just hasn't experienced that a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't have many data points. But yeah, I mean, like when his kind of comments came out today, I sent it to y'all. I was like, there it is. We were waiting for it. We knew that was going to be coming
Mm-hmm.
from him. And I really wish he wouldn't be so
Right.
petty and rise above that. I mean, honestly, like, I mean, that's what he should be expected to do as a guy who makes what, 11.5 million dollars a year. Why are you even entertaining any of that? Just, swallow your pride and say you'll get it fixed and leave it at that. Don't play in to all the fans complaining and everything out there, because that's what fans are going to do. Like, they
Mm-hmm.
want to win. That's
Yeah.
what fans are. Fans are
Hold
not
on
going to
though,
be happy
Ben.
when you lose, and they're going to be
Yeah.
happy, and they're going to over criticize when you lose and overpraise when you win.
And
And that's the
yeah.
job that you have taken on. And if you think you're going to go somewhere else and it's going to be different, you're wrong.
Well, the funny part here is definitely people's expectations have risen as you win 2 natties, as you have 12 years in a row with 10 wins, all the success, expectations rise. You know what elevates that expectation even higher? When you make the brand of your program best is the standard. The best is yet to come. The fun is in the winning. Like when it's just elevated, and Dabo, I know Dabo uses that as recruiting tools and brand building tools for the program, but also that's a good way to raise that floor of expectations from people
Yeah,
up to
and
the
it's
point
and
where
it's
having 2 tough seasons in a row isn't really accepted as much. And it would be great. None of us are asking to be like, best is no longer the standard or take the sign
Mm-hmm.
down or whatever. Keep it up. But you got to at least acknowledge that what has been on the field the last 2 years is not meeting the standard, and take accountability for that. Say that your coaches are accountable to that. But also, it's not just in the language, it's in the action.
yeah. And it's not the fact that we've lost, it's how we've lost,
Right.
right?
Yeah, 2 losses go back to August. Like we were all talking, like, yeah, we'll probably trip up a little bit in ACC play, like knowing what we have
Mm-hmm.
coming in. And Notre Dame's gonna be a tough roadie. I don't think any of us picked South Carolina as a loss,
Yeah. Well,
but
and Dabo will throw out now, to South Carolina's credit, they are better this year than we thought they would
sure.
be.
Mm-hmm.
They've
Especially the last
honestly
couple
lost
games.
a couple stupid games that they shouldn't have, and their record should be better.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, 4 out of our last 5 losses over the last 2 years are to teams with much less talent. Now, Notre Dame, not much less talent. I'd say defense, they're really good. Offense, well, it turns out to be pretty comparable, but I would still say on paper we're a more talented team.
Line and running game, yes. Their quarterback and receivers are dog shit.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I said that already.
In defense, we should be better.
Yeah.
And so that's the pill that's hard to swallow, is that once you start losing to teams that you were more talented than, that's when fans
Mm-hmm.
start getting upset. That's when people start being like, what the hell is going on here? This is not
Well, in a
living up
word,
to
Ben, that's
expectations.
coaching. Like, isn't that
Exactly.
coaching
That's
then?
coaching and leadership.
Like,
Yeah.
that's the equation. It's talent plus coaching equals product on the field. And
Yeah.
we've heard the talents there. This team is recruited, and this is credit to all the assistants whose names we mentioned they should think about moving on from, and Dabo and everybody else. Like, talent's been good. It's as good as it's ever been, right? At least on paper. Now, granted, we don't have Trevor, we don't have Deshaun, we don't have T. Higgins. Like, there are select pieces that are not at the elite of the elite in the sport anymore. And that, I think that helped mask over some stuff for quite some time. Like, that's
Yeah.
no shock.
ETN had 1,600 yards of rushing 2 years in a row when we're throwing the ball like 4,200 yards a game. And so you're totally right. And that's something to unpack. But I did want to mention that this has been bugging me as Ben's been talking is, Dabo's frustration and kind of snappiness at the people kind of criticizing him, and him just kind of like really cracking under that pressure and saying like, well, if you don't like the way I'm going to do it, you can hire somebody else. It's like, I wonder if he is just getting ready, if he's really taking that long, hard look in the mirror, and he's just getting more and more frustrated at like the product on the field and like what his vision is actually producing versus what he thought he could do. And it shouldn't be understated that is another good point from Ben that, it seems like he went into this mode where he wants to try and develop these young coaches the way he's developed young men into great players. And it's, it's just a different game when it comes to that, literally, where like you need to have experienced people like calling the shots and pulling the strings, and then you can guide those kids up. It's like you can't have everybody be a work in progress on your
I guess, Jared, like Clemson fans as a collective would say, if you want to do that, Dabo, not on our time, right? Like, go. I don't know. I don't know where he would go to do that, but not all at once. Exactly. Like, that's the thing.
And at what point are you doing disservice to these kids too, by not pairing them with
the best
qualified coaches?
Right,
then they're going to stop coming to you.
100%. It's the fastest path to destroying a college football program that's elite is to no longer get elite talent to come through the doors. Best way to do that is for them to not think that they're going to be coached up and where their talent's going to be maximized so that they can move on to the next level.
Yeah, and that big flashy building, that's only going to last so long because other teams are going to catch up. College football is always evolving. Programs are always on the move to try to get one up on each other. And now you got the transfer portal. Now you got NIL.
Do we need to talk about the media deals that all the other conferences have that Clemson will not have because we're in the dog shit ACC? Like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's the other thing about winning 10 games and going to the ACC Championship in probably the worst conference in college football. We're in the SEC. Like, how many wins do we have this year?
Depends if we're in the East or West, but yeah, it's we like to say
5 or 6.
We like to tout the record that Devos had against the SEC, but I mean, the product we put on the field,
you know what, though, guys?
Pathetic.
Yeah, we probably have like 3-4 wins in conference, but wouldn't that be an accelerator to making the right kind of changes and like revamping things? I mean,
it could just be people that's like where we freak out and boot Dabo. Yeah.
I think that's where we all feel it's gotten a little stale talking about winning the ACC because it's just not a good conference.
It's not an accomplishment.
No, not. Yeah. I mean, it is when you're going undefeated in a conference and blowing out teams by 30, 40 points in the ACC championship game. But now we're going to go play a North Carolina team that just lost 2 games at home. Like, I mean, good for these kids. Good for the kids if they're able to bounce back from this and go out there and win the football game, hoist that trophy. Like, I'm going to be proud of them. I'm going to be a proud Clemson fan. Absolutely.
We're X minutes into this show here, and like, I just feel bad right now for KJ Henry, Jordan McFadden, guys that came back for their 6th year, 5th year, 4th year, whatever it is. That they don't get a chance to play for a playoff game because I think that they, again, in the ACC and Clemson's path to it, should have gotten there and are not going to get that chance, which sucks. But do I think Clemson would have held up in a playoff matchup? Not based on what I saw Saturday.
No, absolutely not.
And that doesn't matter as much as making it.
Yeah, exactly. Because then you get the experience for the players. That's still a notch on your belt for the program and something to build upon for next year. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how these last 2 games go. With a win in the ACC championship game, that still set us up, I guess, for a New Year's 6 game, which is going to be
you win your conference, you're automatically in. Yeah, the Orange Bowl would be the one we would get. Guys, everyone's talking about it being Alabama. They're going to the Sugar Bowl if Georgia beats LSU. We're gonna get Tennessee in the Orange Bowl. I think that's pretty much gonna happen.
Nice battle of the teams who lost to South Carolina.
Yeah, that just
and South Carolina is still going to be
unpleasant.
In the Meineke Car Care Bowl or Jiffy Lube or Mayo or
Cheez-It or
whatever.
Duke's Mayo. Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, there's obviously, we could silver lining this game, but they're really like, let's do it real quick. Hats off, Jeremiah Trotter, hell of a game. Good job.
Yep.
There were just stellar performances throughout this game and key moments. Just the collective wasn't there. Like, we don't want to discredit or downplay the effort of this team. You really felt it was just a heart-wrenching loss.
How bad
go ahead.
How bad do we beat South Carolina if you switch quarterbacks and we have Spencer Rattler?
Can we get his O-line as well. Is that allowed?
Well, no, we keep our O-line.
I mean, credit to their fucking O-line, man. Like, we did not get pressure enough, and Rattler just picked us apart. We said that, Ben, last week. Like, that was what it would take, and it happened. It happened enough. Like, they didn't put a 50 burger on us, but I don't know. I thought their offensive line play well.
And so, I mean, one last thing as we wrap it up here on the offense. What I've seen, what is now kind of revealed itself here after the last game of the regular season is how many times have we seen the offense get off to a good start this year and then just sputter for the rest of the game? That's on coaching. That is squarely on coaching. That means either an opposing defense adjusted to you and you weren't able to make the adjustments, or you
Tony Elliott could do that. Tony Elliott adjusted. Now, granted, that was probably the guy's a tinkerer, engineer. You know, he had a deep playbook that he had command of. He knew what to run. And he was willing to experiment. Like, I think that's what made Tony who he was, and he had a lot of experience too.
Were you about to say that's what made Tony Elliott a great offensive coordinator after we harped on him for years?
No.
I didn't
say that. I didn't say that. It was I think he kept running the same, tired playbook that didn't maximize talent. But I mean, what would our record be this year if Tony was our offensive coordinator? Probably 12-0.
Yeah, or 11-1.
Nah. 11-1. Still losing Notre Dame.
I mean,
the personnel has something to do with it.
That's the thing, though, is that like we really did, and we can all say we saw more tight ends, more over the middle, and when DJ was cooking for like games like 2 to 6 or something, I mean, he was literally floating it into that corner route right into the breadbasket as they're about to step out of bounds, and he was hitting Antonio Williams in stride on a quick slant and stuff, and he was like making all these plays. I was going, holy shit, like he has made a lot of strides. But I guess maybe the question is like, if you had a quarterback that didn't get in his head and then eventually just regress to C team level quarterback, do we just murder people by 20 points every game if they can just make basic throws and not be too worried about overthrowing or underthrowing or getting picked?
Yeah, and I guess you can only do that to a certain extent before that becomes stale and people start catching on. But you can at least try it for part of the game. I mean, see if it sticks.
Ben may not want me to take it here, but should we just earlier in the season have gone with Cade and just ride with Cade? Like, how bad could he be? Truly?
I don't know if they're not ready to go with him now, and it's hard. Like if they had question marks with him earlier in the season, when you still have the playoff hopes on the line, I think you got to ride with what you truly believe is your best option. And if we're to believe Dabo and Streeter that DJ has been the best option, then that just means Cade is not developed and is not ready yet.
I think they don't want to believe
why we're not doing
who's
that.
His quarterback's coach?
Yeah, Streeter.
Yeah.
I just think they don't want to believe that DJ is going to get worse every game. And as they say, somehow it got worse.
Well, I just think so much of Dabo's approach to this season, let's use the word, his ego is wrapped up in DJ's success of this year. You heard it in the offseason, preseason chatter. He's just so invested. Immediately coming off the field of Syracuse, fans were still storming the field, and he's like, DJ's our starter for Notre Dame, like, period. Let's put that to rest. Like, so much of that is invested in DJ being the starter and finishing the season and having a bounce back. And I don't know if that's like, this is just a prolonging of Dabo's, kind of ego about it or whatever it is, or if truly like Cade can't figure it out. Cade can't process the playbook, can't process the speed of the pass rush, like, can't make his reads or progressions or anything. Like, both things can be true, right? But if that's the case, like, I would hope they'd be able to dedicate some developmental focus to Cade to bring him along somewhat throughout the
Yeah,
course
they
of
should
one
have been
year.
giving him snaps. They should have been giving him way more snaps. And even when we're up, just to like put him out there, get him those snaps. Because what's going to happen is next year, hopefully DJ transfers to UCLA or something, and you're going to have
Notre
Cade
Dame.
and Vizina starting or competing to start, and you're going to have two guys who have relatively no experience when you could have had Cade with, a couple quarters worth of real snaps, going
Let
under his
him
belt.
play half of the Louisville game. Like that game was never in question. Like let him play the second half.
They felt like they felt like they had to keep DJ in there to keep his confidence high while he was doing well. But still, the other, thing we're not talking about here is 15 turnovers in the last 5 games.
That's true.
No, more than that was coming into the game, right?
No, that was 15 in the
that
last
was with this. Okay.
5. Yeah. I think it was like 12 in the last 4 prior to that.
Oh yeah.
3 a game.
But what? And like, let's
Can't
do
win
the
that
thing.
way.
Why do we think that happened? Is it lack of attention to detail? Is it? Yeah, I don't know. It's wild. Anyway, offense not right. Lot of factors. Like, what confidence do you guys have? Thankfully, the salve for this kind of thing is playing a North Carolina defense. I just don't know what to expect in this game.
I'm not making predictions anymore.
Yeah.
It's
hard.
I did like, and it's hard to know what is the real quote or the real attitude because they go back and forth. But I think it was Tiger Illustrated or one of them that posted. It was like the article title was like, DJ has quote no room for error. Cade will be ready to play or something like
TCI.
that. But it's like,
they were paraphrasing a Dabo quote, but TCI.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, that's how it should have been after the like Boston College game or the Florida State game or something like that, where it's like, hey, like it's not that we don't love the kid and care for him. It's like this is a D1 college football program that's competing for national titles, every year for the last like 6 years almost. So, you either got it or you don't. And we're going to test people to make them see who's got it and who doesn't. Yeah.
Is that a list of potential offensive coordinators on your fridge there, Jarrett, behind you?
No,
only our YouTube subscribers can see this list. Go to youtube.com/Clemson podcast. Check out Jared's short list.
Yep. It is actually pretty good, but the real only short list is offensive coordinator Ryan Day from Ohio State after they fired him for losing 1 game this season. You're welcome.
Yeah.
No.
God, what bowl? They might go to the Rose Bowl. I guess they're definitely going to go to the Rose Bowl. Fuck Ryan Day. I don't want him. All right, move on to the defense. Man, we need to pick me up, guys. Because what I want to get into is all this crap with the offense has taken our eyes off the fact that we thought this was going to be a top 5 defense. Lo and behold, we got about a top 20 defense. That being said, the defense is not why we lost Notre Dame. The defense is not why we lost South Carolina. I think the defense would be why we'd ultimately get exposed in the college football playoff. I'm fine with year 1 Wes Goodwin. I mean, yes, we were all expecting a drop off from Venables. If a top 20 is what you get with this caliber of talent, though, what are we going to see next year? This is going to be an ultimate question coming into the offseason that I bet a lot of these rising juniors, guys who've exhausted their 3 years, who have a choice to transfer or go to the draft, like, do they want to come back and play for this collective coaching staff or not next year? Like, do they all opt back in, leave a bad taste in their mouth after the South Carolina game? Like, do they want to come back? But let's just say they don't. You give Wes Goodwin, 2/3 of the talent that he's had or less, and we're a top 20 D. What does this look like?
Yeah, I think the big issues with our defense this year, obviously starting the season, the secondary coming in was already going to be a concern. And then we had all the injuries at the beginning of the season. Now, I have been optimistic about the progression, at least from the cornerback position this year. The safeties leave some more to be desired. Makuba did not have a good game. Obviously, there was a lot of big
Mickens had a targeting.
plays. Yeah,
Right.
Mickens had a targeting, but he's played really well. But at least from the cornerback position, and once guys started getting healthy, Fred Davis obviously being out, at least in that, Malcolm Green, we have lost some guys, but overall, I thought from the guys that are in there, at least from the younger guys, I've been optimistic about their improvement. The other big issue has been the defensive line that just did not materialize this year like we thought it would for various factors. One, XT not coming back or only being able to come back in a limited capacity for a couple of games and then before having to end his college career. Miles Murphy is like you hardly ever hear his name. So you question that there. And, the big issue in this game, was the big downfield passing plays. And that was because we weren't getting pressure on Spencer Rattler. Guys weren't getting home across the defensive line, and leaving our secondary out there having to either cover for too long or they were just had busting coverage. So I give Wes Goodwin a pass for this year, especially for him being the first year in this position as a defensive coordinator. I said it a couple shows ago. I think the combination of two green coordinators was not great. And I was fine with Goodwin. I would have brought somebody else in on the offense. But listen, Goodwin's a guy that, Brent Venables wanted to take with him. So I want to give this guy time still to see how things can develop. Now we're going to head into next year with some gaps at defensive end. Like who's going to plug in there? We have absolutely no clue. Defensive tackle. Does per se come back? I think it's a strong possibility. And then we've got some other guys in the center there that I think we'll be able to trust. The linebacker position has played, has gotten better across the season. And I think the secondary is going to continue to improve next year. So I still think we're in a fairly decent spot on the defensive side of the ball. Surely there are improvements to be made. You can talk about Mickey Kahn as the safeties coach. And so maybe there's some tweaks there because that being really the most glaring weakness on this defensive side of the ball. But overall, I thought Wes has made adjustments when he needed to during the second half of games this season. The defense really locked down, and overall, I thought they played well enough for us to be undefeated. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's I've been thinking like, what is it about two green coordinators that we're going to give one of them a lot more kind of benefit of the doubt versus another? And I mean, one of it could just be like the raw talent, like that both of them got were different. At the skill position for Goodwin, I mean, yeah, we didn't perform as well as we did, but like just the raw talent of like who's on the D line, the front seven, and then some of the back four, I feel is like much higher than like the receivers and DJ on the offense. So it could be that like both of them are just trying to implement their system, and it's just like Goodwin has more to work with. So there were some things that I saw throughout the year that were like, I'm not an expert, but like at no point did I feel like we were trying to build consistent rhythm with who was on the D line. It was like, 4 people out and then constantly just rotating people. It's like, I know you're trying to preserve them, but like they can go 2 drives with the same 4 D linemen.
Well, it didn't seem like tactically driven. Like, this down and distance, this situation on the field, this combo of 4 is just going to shut this drive down.
But which guys are we talking about? Because I feel like KJ Henry was in there pretty much all the time. Same thing with Tyler Davis. Bersay was having to be running out when he was playing just because he wasn't in game shape and having missed so much time. And Justin Maskell was thrown in there to replace Miles Murphy to try to light a fire under his ass. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you would see TD and XT in there, or not XT, TD and Brzee in there, and the next play you'd see Peyton Page and Rook, or you'd see KJ get swapped out, or all that kind of stuff. Not an X and O guys. There maybe there's a better reason for it, or it's just part of like certain looks.
I think running versus passing downs, you'll throw different personnel in there for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I would give West a pass. I mean, being his first year, also Streeter's first year. But I think that it probably just comes down to a lot of like he had more to work with, and I think maybe it's just it takes more accountability for like how the defense looks, and it feels like Streeter, calls his plays, wants his scheme, and then the receivers are being developed by the receivers coach maybe, or like the quarterback, which is his job, is not doing well, and he doesn't want to risk pissing off Dabo by trying to substitute Cade in there more often, so he's kind of hamstrung. Like, what if that was the root of all this? Is like Streeter has a lot better handle of what he wants to do, but like Dabo just will not let him switch quarterbacks.
Entirely possible. I'd give that like a 15% likelihood, right?
Sure.
Like, I don't think Brandon Streeter doesn't know how to coach an offense or like develop an offense, like set up a scheme and like go deploy it. Yeah, Dabo meddling probably happening, right? But I guess on the defensive side, for me, like what we've heard, there's a lack of that like intensity, which is a little strange because obviously Brent Venables, like you're not replacing all the things that guy brought, but you have enough coaches that were here already, and you got these like senior tenured players as well.
Should have promoted Smotherman, the get back coach, instead of West, probably.
Well, what I've heard,
there's your intensity.
What I've heard too was that like really kind of on both sides of the ball, there's not really been a lot of vocal leaders stepping up to like make the team be accountable to one another like there used to be in the past. Again, coming from stuff I read from a former player that was on the scout team defense, where he just kind of outlined like, hey, like, that level of accountability and leadership just isn't there.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Will Shipley, on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, so we got a message from Tully. Somehow having a coughing fit because I'm allergic to shitty intensity on D. So Tully's taking a break here while he gets his breath back.
That's pretty.
Let's see. On the defensive side of the ball, KJ Henry, maybe. I mean, we're missing that linebacker like Skowski and Ben Bulwer type, certainly, from this year. But also, a lot of these guys are, young. The seniority really on this team was across the defensive front. I think Xavier Thomas probably would have been that guy had he been able to get on the field more this year, and possibly the same thing with Brian Brisset. But when you're just not seeing the field a lot, it's kind of hard to be that guy. You're kind of relegated to being a cheerleader on the sidelines instead of the intense presence on the field itself. So yeah, I do think I think leadership is another big overall topic affecting this team, or the lack thereof. That certainly, could be, a big part of the reason why the turnovers have been such an issue, or, whatever. But I still think I was impressed by the team as a whole, able to bounce back from the Notre Dame game. I want to see how they play against North Carolina and see if they bounce back from the loss against South Carolina, because that will at least tell me that Dabo has not lost this team. And once you see a head coach start to lose the team, that's when you really should start getting concerned that the end may be near. And, Clemson basketball fans specifically should know that all too well. Brad Brownell is still here despite his records. His teams play hard to the end. And I think that's a big reason why he's, still here. So what are we going to see out of this team this Saturday? We'll see. And I think maybe there's quite possibly a lot more leadership in the locker room and on the field than we really know about. Just because they're not the vocal ones in the media and everything doesn't mean that isn't present. So, and kind of going back to that, Wes Goodwin, probably to his benefit, I think one of his greatest attributes is he doesn't really say much. Whereas Streeter can, says probably too much in being defensive and defending himself. And Wes just kind of puts his head down and goes back to work. So I don't know. This is new territory.
He probably got that from Venables. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is new territory, for all of us. We were definitely on the backside of the, going downhill from the pinnacle. Now the question is it, just a shallow valley, or is it a chasm? We don't know that yet. We can try to predict, but we don't know. We're gonna have to see what Dabo does in the offense or in the off season and see what type of development we see how the team comes out and plays this Saturday, what we see in the bowl game, and then what changes are made in the off season leading into next year.
And I think what's going to lift all boats here is bringing elite talent into the program. Like 1 year ago, in the midst of that season last year, I think what we were most concerned about was not the season itself, but the prospect or specter of losing all of our senior talent going to the draft, seeing guys exit through the transfer portal to more NIL rich programs, and then having like a big drop off in recruiting. Knock on wood, fortunately, it looks like from the defensive side, we're going to be pulling in a good amount of talent here in the 2023 class. I will chalk that up almost entirely to hiring Nick Eason. So credit to Dabo. He brought in an outside guy. Now, granted, the guy, I went to college with the guy at Clemson. Like, he is a Clemson guy. He checked both boxes. He checked the Dabo box and he checked the outside box, that brought in a lot of good talent. Some of them Auburn recruits at the time. So anyway, like for the time being, it's like a stay on the defense at the very least reloading, which is great news. I think ongoing, you got to see that. We haven't seen that elite caliber of offensive recruit in the wide receiver room in quite some time. We've been picking away at some 4-star slot guys. Seems like we hit on Antonio Williams. We're all very excited about Adam Randall. Look, those guys were in-state South Carolina guys. Like, I would hope we would get them. We took Antonio Williams away from South Carolina at the last minute. I think we've taken a big step back in recruiting on the offensive side in the state of Florida since Jeff Scott left, and haven't replaced that, haven't rebuilt those high school coach relationships to pull in those recruits. Seems like we're basically the top team recruiting in the state of Alabama right now. Chris Vizina is coming. We just pulled, I was going to say Toriano Pride, but he's already on the Tigers. Hopefully this recruit is not listening to this show, but a defensive line recruit who's a 5-star from Phoenix City, Alabama. So anyway, things are looking pretty good on the recruiting side for Clemson right now. That is the place to watch. Like, that is a leading indicator of the health of your program. So,
and all the more reason and all the more maddening that we've had the last few seasons, because on paper, like, these are the most talented teams. Yeah. Now we don't have the generational talents. That's part of the problem. And going back to the Antonio Williams part of it, like, we offered him at the last minute. What if we didn't have him on this team this year?
Same goes for Makuba. Last year, Dabo was like, I think we're good on numbers. I forget who it was. Maybe Mickey, whoever it was, like, kudos to Mike Reed or Mickey Khan, who was like, no, we got to go offer Makuba. We can get him from Texas. Freshman year starter,
ETM was
phenomenal safety.
ETM was a last minute pick.
Yeah, Trayvon Mullen was back in the day. Like, there's a lot of these cases where coin flip, decision late at night over a box of Papa John's. Like, yeah, let's go ahead and offer these guys. Like, I just think maybe this brings us to, we haven't mentioned the words transfer portal or NIL yet on this show yet. I think one of the things that we want Dabo to think about reforming or evolving his philosophy, or maybe opening himself up a little bit to progress, is like, do what you do, Dabo. Like, you recruit really well. You identify talent really well. You create brands. You create catchphrases. Like, you establish these things. You're successful when you focus on something. Do that with talent acquisition right now. Like, evolve that, make that happen through the transfer portal. I know you've made promises to recruits. You've made promises to guys on your roster right now. Times have changed. The system around college football has changed. I don't think any of those guys would fault Dabo if we happen to have some departures that were unexpected, being like, we've got some slots to fill. There's some good talent that I think meets our culture. Like, go be real with your players about your changing philosophy. And
half those guys are going to leave that you bring in anyway. Yeah. We were down to Carson Donnelly playing safety in this game. And so, yeah, you
have no choice.
You're totally right.
You have to
do all those things you're good at, and you can still use the transfer portal. You still have an ability to identify high character young men who are going to come in and buy into the philosophy and the culture of your program. And it's only going to help to elevate everybody else. Like, and if the guys are feeling like they're getting passed over, they'll leave. Like, they're doing that anyways.
Yeah, they're doing that anyways.
So,
I mean,
Cole Turner is not going anywhere.
Exactly.
Nor should he.
Like, you don't need to fill half your roster with transfer guys. Alabama isn't doing that. Georgia isn't doing that, right? You just need the right
Georgia
guys
took 0
in the
this
right
year,
spots at the time. And
they're also the number one.
We got Hunter Johnson. Oh, no, Georgia took 0 this year. Is that
they don't need to, though.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But also because they take Matt. So here's the thing. You can have it one of two ways. Mine the portal where you have the need. Please do that. Or plan for attrition, sign huge classes, pad your numbers. It's going to play out. Like, I haven't looked at the numbers in a while, but we were running basically on self-imposed sanctions for several years in a row. Just in terms of guys that have left the program, like 8 unused scholarships that we were giving to walk-ons. And look, we love a walk-on here. We don't love 8 walk-ons.
There's one walk-on I love.
Yes.
The right behind Ben's computer is a human-sized pinup of Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, he picked Hunter up and threw him in a scanner himself.
That's right, in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I mean, I just going back to like Dabo, like I think now's a moment where I'll be optimistic. Usually not my style, but I will be optimistic and say, like, I think Dabo is going to come out with a fresh brand, fresh pearl of wisdom, or something that really states like a new direction for the program, maybe for the offense that is like, it's along the lines of best as a standard, but like, when people think about Clemson football, they think about Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Like, the offense is really what comes to mind. I think of defense more so, but I could see Dabo like focusing on what is the direction of the program the next X amount of years. Like, this can give him a rejuvenation in his this current phase of his career, which I think would be good.
And he loves playing the underdog, right? That's what he excels at. So and he doesn't like losing these games, not just because he has to hear from dumbasses like us, but but like he's a competitor. He doesn't want to lose. There's nobody.
He's a listener of the show.
Nobody in the building that was happy, or in that football facility that was happy about losing to South Carolina, happy about losing to Notre Dame. So, yeah, I hope you're right, Tully. And I think he has it in him if he will embrace that. You have to evolve in college football. The landscape is constantly shifting and changing. You see what's happening with the conferences. You saw what happened with the transfer portal. You saw what happened with NIL. And the teams that were, successful 5-6 years ago are not going to remain successful if they keep doing the same thing they were doing 5 or 6 years ago. It's just not going to happen.
So one thing I'll say, and maybe we'll end on a positive, is Jarrett, you were at these games. You could tell me. I don't know how conscious you were in these games, but Graham Neff is up there once a half pleading with fans to join the NIL collective, contribute, like, put your money where your fandom mouth is, help us build an NIL collective at Clemson that establishes us as an elite college football program. That's the athletic department, official athletic department. That's not Clemson Tom out there passing the plate for NIL money. All respect to Clemson Tom. Like, it is Graham freaking Neff, our new AD, who is out there doing this. Like, that is a good sign to me. I'm taking that as a positive. That he's out there telling the boosters, like, it's not just IPTAY money we need. We need like double that. Put some in this bucket too.
I'm only contributing to NIL funds for transfer portal players.
To build a physical portal.
We'll get a podcast GoFundMe that'll directly be used for portal NIL.
You want extra $37 in your pocket? Come to Clemson.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly. You want 2 things of Bojangles Bowberry biscuits once a week? Come to Clemson. Yeah, I would say, okay, here's a hot take for Cody since he can't be with us. I would say Wes Goodwin, if you look at the 2 coordinators, right? Wes Goodwin by the end of the year will say, he left us with a little bit to be desired, but Brandon Streeter left us sick to the stomach. Thoughts?
we expected Wes Goodwin to have the defense performing worse than Venables, and we expected Streeter to have it performing better than Tony Elliott. I think like the defense is maybe worse than we expected. They're not top 5, but Streeter did improve on Elliott, but there's enough to be seen that I think your prognosis is right, Jarrett.
I would also like to point, the caveat there being that when your offense is performing as abysmally as it has, and you're turning it over 3 times a game and putting your defense in shitty situations with short fields, that's hard on a defense to keep running it out there. I think the defense has played a lot better than most people, have the impression this year. I have not nearly had many issues with the defense. Yeah, you can say the Wake Forest game. We're still dealing with, fresh, young guys in the secondary there. We've had, injury issues across our monstrous defensive line. Maybe you can say not moving Trent Simpson back to the Sam position earlier. It was maybe a miscoaching call until the hand was forced because of injury. But
it's like willingness to make those adjustments soon enough that I think will come with time for Goodwin. By my count, though, Ben, like from Syracuse on, in the meaningful games, our defense allowed 7 points a half, like on average. If you take out short fields created by the offensive turnovers, short of South Carolina, you had like the Makuba bust. Don't need to get into that, but if you want to give the defense credit for Trotter's points that he put on the scoreboard, like it's doing even better than that. So, I mean, this game was a complete shit show. The defense, I guess, is allowed to have that once in a while. Can we stop talking about the South Carolina game and the trajectory of the program? I mean, do you guys have any parting thoughts we haven't hit on yet? Like coaching changes you want to see happen? I mean, I think it's pretty clear at this point where we are.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to say is that, we talk a lot about the transfer portal for like students, and it's like, oh, if I'm being passed up, I'm going to transfer. But it's made me wonder, if I'm somebody that's spent 10 years, 20 years developing myself as a position coach for college football, and then I look over and there's a guy who has almost no experience get a position coach job, and then I see that position group start to like suck and like not be great, is there a possibility where like if Dabo rides or dies with some of these fresher coaches and they start to underperform more, do like the more anchors of the team and those coaches take a hike and enter the assistant coaches transfer portal and leave us even thinner, where he's maybe just going to fill it with even more people for Dabo land to run the program?
No, valid point. Hope not. Completely valid though. I mean, that is, you're maintaining a culture throughout. And granted, it's meant to be a family. They help each other out, that kind of thing. It's not just like mercenaries Inc. here, but absolutely valid. And you're gonna have to see. It's tough because what is Clemson's assistant salary pool right now? I know when Venables and Elliott were there, they were like 2 of the top 5 paid assistants. I think we all hope there's new leadership on the offensive side coming up soon. That doesn't mean that you have to fire these guys out of the program entirely, though. We should note that. But yeah, I don't know. We need to have an episode coming up with design your ultimate coaching refactor for Clemson for this offseason. We will not do it here on this show because we've already been going a while. And we got to see what this North Carolina game's all about. I just think, if a couple plays have gone our way against Notre Dame and South Carolina and we're in the playoff, all is not well with the foundations of the program. There's kind of cracks in a lot of places. These can be productive losses. If Dabo is really willing to evaluate stuff. I think, Ben, you were alluding to that earlier. But you're right, Jarrett, that if he just doubles down and stays stubborn in terms of having his guys there, if you're Lemansky Hall, if you're Mike Reed, I'm most concerned about Mike Reed and losing him. What does that say to you? What signals does that send? Could you find yourself in a different defense elsewhere with a path to coordinator at some point? So,
over
Let's
under
see this game.
over under 3.5 series before we see Cade on the field on Saturday.
Over.
Over.
It'll take
Yeah.
longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would take the over even if you said 6 to 7 series.
What about if DJ throws 3 straight interceptions?
I think if he throws one, he might be out of there. I think you're right. Maybe picking the over just because North Carolina, their defense.
Yeah.
Sucks.
Yeah. See, the thing is, South Carolina's defense sucks. Like,
yeah,
especially against the run.
I do wonder. I do wonder with Dabo knowing. I do wonder with Dabo knowing how bad North Carolina's defense is, and he's seen that this team can put up points against bad defenses. Just because.
Yeah, he's gonna be like, "Oh, DJ had a great game. Ha!
Let DJ go out with the ACC Championship game victory. Send him off into the sunset, and then have Cade start the bowl game."
Look, the Hawaii Warriors can use a leader at that position.
Yep.
I'm afraid he's going to go to Notre Dame and win the Heisman next year.
Yeah, it would. I think after they beat the living tar out of him,
that's the other.
Like, why would they want to? And their quarterback that was injured is a true freshman. But I get your concern. He would do great as a Maryland Terrapin, where we don't ever have to see him again.
It's a really great question that all along, all season, Dabo has even seemed to indicate this is DJ's last with the program when he still has a year of eligibility.
He graduates in December though. He has 2 years of eligibility left,
but he could still come back.
Yeah,
absolutely, he can come back. Let me ask you guys this: what are the odds he's the starting quarterback against Wofford week 1 next year? Like, I'd have to lay some odds out. You guys are out on that? Like, I'm not saying that's a 0 chance.
I would say 30.
I'm going that's like a 33% chance.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I mean, I did notice in like August when they were talking in those first team meetings, they were saying Dabo kept saying like he's a great kid, he's gonna graduate in December. And I thought that was maybe kind of like a to use a term Cody is familiar with, like a dog whistle for us to be aware of. That maybe he's Dabo saying, "Hey, he's gonna graduate. He's gonna get out of here."
Yeah, that's what I was alluding to. It's just kind of tongue in cheek. Dabo has said some things that makes you seem like makes it seem like it's been a foregone conclusion that this is his last year, and it does make me wonder about what conversations have been had. I mean, why would he not say otherwise if he really believes in DJ and thinks he needs to keep building him up and to bring him back in the offseason and spring practice and keep seeing progression and him being the leader next year? Like it's almost like the writing has been on the wall. Right.
The truth is that DJ knows what Dabo did last summer, and that's why he hasn't gotten thrown off the field. He's got the dirt. Tinfoil hat.
We need a little jingle when it's the tinfoil hat moment of the show.
Big Dave has something to do with that.
Yeah.
Let's bring him on the show and ask him. Big Dave will do it.
Yep.
Who's our volleyball coach?
I'd watch that show. I'd watch that TikTok series. Big Dave will do it.
Big Dave will do it. #challenge. I don't give a shit about what happened in the rest of college football.
Nope.
Or what's happening this coming weekend. Or who's making the playoff. It's not us.
Georgia's going to win it all.
Yep. Could lose to Michigan, but we'll see.
Michigan, I will finally.
What about – hold on.
Finally
what about –
give Michigan credit.
Do you think there's a world where USC has enough offense?
Real one.
I just think it's Oklahoma 2.0.
No.
Yeah,
no, their defense, and when they go up against the Georgia defense, you're gonna.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
TCU kind of feels like a team of destiny, but we'll see.
TCU
it's probably going to be a really fun, enjoyable playoff.
TCU is like a Notre Dame team that has a good defense but no offense, gets in the playoffs and gets waxed in the first round. We're going to see 2 semifinal beatdowns, I think, again this year.
Yeah, I just want a good final game, and I guess it's
Georgia,
Michigan.
Georgia, Michigan.
I mean, we saw it last year when Michigan had better players before they graduated them. So, and granted, Georgia did too, but I don't know, kind of boring.
I hate them all. I hate every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of find myself wishing Alabama was back.
There's a chance.
At least
A
I
little
can
bit of chaos.
respect that program, you know. All Saban's done.
Yeah.
By the way, Saban has 2 losses this year. Not in embarrassing fashion.
Love to see it.
No.
And I know this is a 1-point loss, but that was embarrassing. It was really bad. Like bad way it happened. To who it happened.
You guys think we can beat Tennessee?
Cox.
Hendon Hooker's down. So with a
That's
one-legged
true.
hooker, I think we can beat a one-legged hooker.
Wouldn't be the first time for
How long you been sitting on
Ben.
that joke?
I don't know, but if we need help, we can get Craig James out of the portal. So,
let's get out of here on that note. Good Lord, Craig James, man. So, all right, we will be back to recap the ACC Championship game against North Carolina. Let's say like 2 words on this game. They've had 2 embarrassingly bad losses in a row to like a completely disheveled NC State team and then a pretty terrible interim coached Georgia Tech team. I just don't know what to expect from Clemson's offense in this game. But I don't know. I could see the team like bowing up, having pride after that tough loss, coming out and fighting like we saw against Louisville. Like, I feel like I'm expecting a bounce back. I think the matchup favors us. Drake May is really solid, though. I mean, the last quarterback we faced that was really solid was Sam Hartman, and he lit up our secondary. I mean, you could. We haven't mentioned Rattler's name too much. You could say he was a solid quarterback too. You know, he got home and he lit us up too. I think it's really a matter of, can our defensive line get home? You know, that's going to be dictating this entire game. You know, if we're turning it over, like, yeah, we could definitely lose. We have been. So that would be like the one thing I would be looking for to clean up. But I'm going to be holding my nose watching the first quarter.
I'm just worried DJ's going to throw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns and be back next year as the starting quarterback. No, I'm joking. Listen. Like, stop bashing DJ. He's a good kid. Like, we should like. It's entertainment, folks. It's like it's freaking entertainment. Like, if you're getting all wound up, I know as we sit here talking on a podcast, it hasn't ruined our lives. It hasn't ruined our lives. I mean, maybe Jared's a little bit, but
74 minutes of winding people up.
Yeah, like get
You're
over
welcome.
it. Get over it.
I can't believe they pay us to do this.
No, yeah. You get
No,
paid.
I mean,
no. What I want to see, and while I'll be tuning in this Saturday, is I want to see this team bounce back, go out there and punch North Carolina in the frickin' face and slaughter them, and get some momentum going into the December break and bowl practice, and then come out fresh with the right mindset. And go out there and win a bowl game. Because you know what? If it all breaks down and this team crumbles, that doesn't look good going into next year.
It looks terrible.
I mean, lose 3 in a row.
Or 2.
Not what you want.
Yeah. So, I want to be optimistic, but I think what we're going to see is if DJ already knows more and more that his job is truly like more and more on the line, and that the fans don't really care for him and they're calling for his job every game, and he knows that like they don't even want him to start the game or anything. I just think that he's going to come out, they'll play a little conservative, they'll get him kind of moving the ball a little bit, he'll throw behind the line of scrimmage 5 times in a row, and he's just going to not look sharp. And I think that by third quarter, I think they're just going to have to put in Cade because the game's going to be close and North Carolina can score even against our defense. So I think that's what's going to happen. I would love to see DJ, thrive, but I don't have any confidence he's going to be like mentally tough enough to shake that off.
I mean, if we, heaven forbid, we start with a big deficit, don't know what you do. Tough. I think you just
in a
air it
way,
out.
like-
You put it in
Yeah.
Cade.
Yeah.
Air it out with DJ. If that's not working, roll with Cade is what it is. And then
Yeah.
Dabo's radio show next week is a can't miss event.
And Jared, you talked
Yeah.
about, and everybody's talking about this, how 5 of the 9 completions were from behind the line, or behind the line of scrimmage.
Mhm.
Well, they should have done that more then. Seemed to be very successful.
I mean, that's the part, like every answer I've heard from Dabo and Streeter is like, well, why didn't you do that then? Or like, what was the thought process of not doing that?
Or when they're like, we should have run DJ more. Oh yeah, we
or
probably should give it
Spiller,
to Shipley
or
more.
Spiller,
Yeah.
Shipley. We should have run CJ Spiller more.
That's what
Um,
you know what this game reminded me of when we weren't sticking with Shipley there at the end after he had such a good game. Was Tommy Bowden, dadgum pulling Reggie Merriweather in that South Carolina game. Driving you down the field. Best thing going for you.
Yeah.
A little before my time, but I trust you.
5?
That
we won in 05.
was the 05 or 06. I graduated in 06 with Reggie Merriweather in the fall.
But 06 was James Davis and Spiller's first year. So maybe it was 05. Anyway, we'll look it up.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll have to see.
We will be back to recap championship weekend. ACC title sure would be nice, despite all the stuff we just said about the trajectory of the program.
Yeah, they'll get some fucking ring pop rings and
will be nice.
lick their lollipops all the way to the Orange Bowl. No, go Tigers.
So let's get that win. We'll be back to recap that. Thank you all for tuning in. For any South Carolina fans, if you made it this far, screw you. Enjoy the tears. Hope they're tasty.
Yeah, and Russia's really isn't that great.
What's that?
It's like a restaurant in Columbia.
Never heard of it.
Pretty sure. Well, yeah, it's trash.
And as always, go Tigers. Let me do that again. Well, with that, we got to wrap it. And as always, go Tigers. All right.